This is Peter McFarland, and it's February 10th, 2021, and I'm calling the Community Preservation Committee meeting to order. First order of business is just doing a roll call. So we'll start according to my screen. To my right, Patty Starr.
Patty Starr here.
Pat Lane.
Here.
Julie Barbara Essa.
Julie Barbara Issa here.
Doug Greeley.
Doug Greeley here.
Catherine Walsh.
Here.
Fiasco.
Here.
John Hall.
Here, but you're fading out a little, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And chairs here. So next order of business is approval of the minutes from January 27th. Has everybody had a chance to read them? And there's any comments?
I did not.
Motion to approve.
No. Second.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none. We'll do another call. Patty?
Approve.
Aye.
Is that me? It's Peter, you're cutting out a little bit, but I approve.
Julie? Joe? Greeley?
Doug Greeley, aye. Aye, approve.
Catherine Walsh?
Aye.
Let's go.
Aye. Approve.
John Hall?
Approve.
Chair approves, unanimous approval. Okay, thank you. So we had 5 projects approved at Monday night. It was Monday nights.
It was Thursday.
So long ago. Was it last Thursday?
It was last Thursday. Yeah.
It still seems like we're going through that meeting. So all the 5 projects got approved. So it's just to discuss next steps. What happens now is the accounts for each project are set up by the finance department at the town hall. And then those, that I guess more or less, there'll be the money will be available, and if the next step is if they have to go out to bid, or that's up to the applicant to contact procurement at town hall to get your project moving. Once you can start discussion now. I mean, it's just a matter of counting thing as far as flipping the starting the new accounts for the projects. But so as far as that goes, so. I don't know if any discussion had.
Yeah, so I wanted to put this on for discussion just in terms of, obviously for the next steps, I still need to finish just an official letter to the project proponents. But I want to discuss maybe having a CPA liaison to projects as we did previously. 2 out of the 5 that were approved, one was the proponent was a nonprofit, Old Parish Cemetery Volunteers. The other one was a board, the Historical Commission. Earlier this week, I've been having kind of a back and forth discussion with Patty Fanning, Kathy Carney, Paul, and Mark Ryan in terms of the Old Parish project. That's a project, obviously, with it being the proponent being a nonprofit and the funds being municipal funding. Beyond the CPA liaison, we talked about obviously kind of bringing authority to the project to the DPW, seeing that it's town land. It'll be town land maintained by the Department of Public Works. I think Mark recommended Paul Rinaldi as kind of the town supervisor of that project. And likewise, for the Morse House, this is another discussion that unfortunately I haven't had yet with Tony or Paul or anybody, but that's something that we obviously want to decide in terms of not just the CPA liaison, but what municipal department would probably be kind of the project manager, so to speak. Whether the project needs its own separate project manager, or if it would fall under something like the facilities department in terms of actually working to put the project out to bid and dealing with whoever that landscape architect is who is chosen. So those two projects in particular, out of the 5 that are approved, are kind of, in that gray area. Whereas, Murphy Field and the pool project, Travis Farley being the director, knows how to manage those projects. And with the Carillon project, Kathy Carney has kind of been the person steering that project, along with Lee Leach. So that's just something I kind of want to get on everyone's radar in terms of where we see the Morse House project from the town side, but then obviously liaisons for all the projects in terms of just kind of touching base with that municipal official as your point of contact on what's going on.
Okay. We'll get on that.
One thing too, with the Morse House and to a lesser extent, the Old Parish Cemetery, the Morse House, when you go out, if there is a second, whatever the second phases will be on that project, definitely have to have a project manager.
Mhm.
Even if it has to be paid for, it should be included in the proposal, the recommendation of the town meeting. Because that can be, you definitely need somebody that's going to be able to be on site, that knows construction, and be able to handle that, project. So that's something that's going to have a project manager included in the next phase for sure. This phase here, it's more or less being available to open the house up if somebody has to go in and do the tour and the inspection, and that could be a couple of days, on site, people coming forth to and fro, but so that it's to a lesser extent, the study doesn't need the project manager, but the next phase, whatever it is going to need one, because we can't have this, it's just there's too involved. So nobody, to kind of, expect, unless the facility department has somebody on staff that can do that, that's one thing that would be a great asset to us. But if not, that definitely has to be included in the specs for phase 2.
Right.
John Hall?
Peter, I'm wondering if there are any analogies with what we did with the chapel project, because that was also a restoration of a historic building. And we had, I think it was Joe, liaison from CPA, and so he's probably learned a lot about overseeing historical restoration projects when the official town agency, in that case the PBCC, and in this case you're suggesting facilities or some other group, has knowledge, but perhaps not as much knowledge as they think they have, because historic buildings really do have their own character and their own needs and demands. And we want to make sure that we get as close as we can to having somebody who understands that and is knowledgeable about that sitting in a critical position.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree, John. It's just, but the thing about the chapel was the PBCC was the proponent to us, and plus they were they're the town, project managers. Even though we had an owner's project manager assigned to that, it was bid out and awarded to someone. They were the overseers of the project. So and their expertise is all types of construction, electrical work. I mean, that's a very wide variety of skills that that committee had, for that project. So, restorations, I don't know how much their, professional experience was in that type of restoration, but a lot of that, I know Ted Callahan has been involved with school renovations for most of his career. So he was, I think he understands that whole, old building, what needs structural work and all that type of stuff, as far as all that goes. Joe Grilli?
Yeah, thank you. I think what Pat has laid out as far as, I don't know, call it a town hall liaison, but Paul Rinaldi, for example, with the Old Parish Cemetery, that's a perfect match. I think what we're looking for is a community preservation committee liaison with the liaison, I guess, but basically to for example, John brought up the chapel. What I tried to do was just stay in contact with Ted Callahan and the PBCC, and it's not, I certainly don't have, I've got bats in the belfry, but I don't have any other architectural experience other than that. Similarly, with the Carillon, I've been, have met on a regular basis with Lee, and I had met with Bernie and Kathy several times as well. So I think what our task is to act as the go-between, not to use a word from history, not to supplant the town hall representative or liaison, but basically just to add that continuity between committees.
Mhm.
So I think what Pat has described is perfect. I think if our group, if we just said, okay, well, for instance, I know John Hall and I have both taken a tour with Patty on the Old Parish Cemetery, so that might be a good one for either of us to get involved in. I'll be happy to continue the work with Lee and Kathy and whoever else is involved with the Carillon. But I think that that's probably what Pat is describing, is a liaison from our committee to work with the project team on a specific project.
Yeah, and to your point, Joe, and obviously, was that Pete?
Well, I was just going to say liaison. I mean, I worked with Travis on Bond Street and Lower Bulch. I can continue with working with Travis on the pool study in Murphy Field. They're not, right now they're not that involved as far as that goes, but it basically is facilitating communications. So the committee has always got somebody that's kind of poking, use a Joe term, poking behind the curtain, as far as that goes. So as far as all that goes, Tony?
Yes, thank you. I had spoken to Judith following the town meeting, and she was going to contact Kathy Connie first to see what the obligation was in terms of putting that out to bid, and whether or not her office is the one that does that. And then we could certainly, reach out to Tony Mizuko and Paul Halakiotis or whomever and find a point person, a municipal person, whether maybe even a building inspector, I don't know. But I know there's an article for the Permanent Building Construction Committee, which sort of, they still exist, but they're not working as much right now on a project. Certainly Ted Callahan is a licensed architect. He could certainly, I think, provide an expertise. I recognize that this is a restoration, that the house is old, and some things might be different, but we'll work on that right away to find a proper municipal liaison for us. And obviously I will be involved and can be a point person to the committee on the Morse House.
Great.
Thank you.
I would suggest when we're picking liaisons, we try not to pick people who are already publicly on record, as opposed to doing anything at all with or for the Morse House. And one of the people you listed falls in that category. So to the extent that we have a choice to make, I would try to find somebody who's at least got an open mind.
Phrased very nicely, John.
Very diplomatic.
So noted. Okay, so the Old Parish Cemetery, who wants to be liaison for that? That's the only one I don't have a fixed name for.
Well, I don't
John.
think too much on to Joe and you, Peter, so I'll volunteer for that.
And so what are the other two?
Oh,
You said the
Tony will have the Morse House. Joe's had the Carillon since the start, so
Carillon.
it's basically just
Yeah.
another phase of it. And Pool and Murphy Field are the two I'll handle, because that's Travis.
Okay.
And I'm dealing with Travis still on the Lower Bulch project
Got it.
anyway. So I as far as that goes, so I'll keep in touch with Travis as far as that goes. So that's the 5 that were recently approved.
Yeah, and I thought the liaison process, I mean, I forgot who brought that up. I don't know if it was you, Peter, or you, John, or maybe Joe, but it seemed to work out in terms of just having that direct community preservation committee involvement with the municipal staff, who is essentially the project manager. Obviously, with me leaving town, and, I know Paul obviously will be the main point of contact with the CPC to the best, when he's available. And I'm not sure if there's another plan in place. I'm not sure where they're at in terms of bringing on my replacement or whatnot. But I think just for the functionality of the CPC, I think those liaisons are, just personally, I think they'd be very important for the next couple months in terms of just keeping track of the project managers, so to speak, and seeing where they're at. Obviously, this committee is under the direction of the Community Development Department, and I know Paul will probably be involved in the interim. But I'm not sure if there is designated staff yet currently. I'm not sure if this becomes another Joe Collins committee that he has to come to, and I know Joe is very busy. So I think just liaisons right now in terms of, it's still there's still snow on the ground, so I don't see these projects getting going yet until a couple months down the line, and so obviously things could change by the time we get to April. But just right now, I think the liaison is definitely a good idea.
I agree.
Great.
I'd like to talk with Joe and Peter at some point about what they've done as liaisons, sort of frequency of contact, questions asked, assistance offered, because this is my first time and I like to learn from my predecessors.
We'll let you know what it's like.
Happy to help.
It's not anything. I mean, we can talk offline on that. So it's not a burdensome process. As far as that goes. So the current projects, we need to, the only thing is, well, I mean, and after Pat's, this is Pat's final meeting, and after he's completed, Paul will be our go-to person. Paul Alkiotis will be our go-to person, and until a new hire is done. And right now, the timeline looks like, I talked to Paul about it. It looks like the position's going to be advertised till the end of February, and hopefully they'll have somebody in by April, sometime in April. So we could be going into town meeting, just with, minus, well, since we'll be minus Pat anyways, it's just, we might not have, we'll just have Paul and as Pat, Joe Collins and I work together on, the.
I don't want to
assistant-
volunteer the guy. I'm just,
Yeah, I know, just
got so much
volunteer
going on
anybody.
already.
It doesn't matter, you're going out the door, you can volunteer anybody.
Yeah.
They'll know how to find you in Walpole though.
I know.
All right. So we'll what we have to do in the rest of February and March is get these new applicants in, and we'll have to do a public hearing, which will probably be the fourth Wednesday in March. Or actually, we do have, March has five Wednesdays. So it could be the 24th or the 31st, if we feel we need any extra time. But we'd have a meeting, well, let's see, 10th, today's the 10th, the 24th of February, we have tentative, right? March
Yep.
10th will be our next
Yes.
full
Yep.
committee meeting. And March 24th was the another tentative date we had, so we could have the public hearing on the 24th. We'd have to finalize that decision by March 10th. Because we'd have to give 2 weeks notice, and the 24th would be the,
That's reasonable. 24th should be reasonable, yeah.
so we have, I don't have a list of,
Let me do one.
Pat, could you maybe even read off the
Yep.
applications, just so
Yep.
I don't have anything.
Bringing them off. Hold on one moment. All right, so we have the Fire Bell project that was submitted by John Grove and representatives from the Norwood Fire Department. We have I believe we have 3 projects that were submitted by the Trails Committee. However, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, was the platform project, was that tabled, or was that something that the Trails Committee still wants to go forward with? I know we had the letter from Town Manager Mizuko on about that. Because I know the 3 projects were, just to say them, the Hawesbrook Path, the study of the loop trail off of University Ave, and the viewing platform at the
Landfill.
above the
Mount Norwood.
Mount
Yep.
Norwood. There we go.
So to answer your question, I'm not aware of a letter from Tony. I do remember a letter that Paul had sent to Tony, or maybe
Maybe that was it.
to the board. We have had, Lee Leach and I have had a couple of discussions actually with Tony. There is a possibility, as far as I know, and Matt, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, that's still under review or under study by the Board of Selectmen / Tony. Frankly, and there's a thumbs up, thank you. The feeling I got from Tony is that he would like to table it until further notice. So I don't know that officially, but I'd say the chances of us proceeding, we will obviously try to get that resolved ASAP, but the chance of us proceeding with that, I'd say, is slim because of issues that were raised during the town manager's review. So I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, not to speak for the town manager, Joe, but I think that's pretty accurate, what you said.
Yeah. So I'd say it's a less than 50-50 that it'll go forward. And as soon as we know that for sure, we'll probably end up just pulling the application, at least for the time being. I did try to get a gauge for him from Tony as to whether or not the answer was no / not at all, or no / not now. So I think that's part of the review that he may be going through right now. But I would say we're probably not going to proceed with that in the near future.
Okay.
Pat, if I can just give you a quick update on the other 2.
Yeah, Joe, want me to make you the presenter? I just got your email, but I'm having some issues on my end.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, one moment.
Thank you.
One is the interpretive signs.
That would mean I'd have to be prepared to be the presenter.
Yep, so you should have a box that shows up that says I made you the presenter.
Yep, got it. Find a file. All right, so at the recent town meeting, this article was actually reviewed on last Thursday, whatever day that was, this 5th maybe. So we had put in an application. The Trails Committee had put in an application to the Community Preservation Committee to create a more mobility friendly, I'm assuming you folks can see that, but a mobility friendly trail at the Hawes Pond area. Let me go to the, let me just open up the other file here for a second. This might be a better one to start off with. So the application, there is a trail on the yellow highlighted area here. There is an existing footpath, but it's overgrown. There are branches and roots and all other kind of trip hazards. What we had proposed, it seems like a long time ago now, but what we had proposed was to cover the existing trail with something that's a little bit more mobility friendly, and that translates into being accessible to families with strollers, folks that are on a walker, for instance, or a wheelchair, or anybody that needs a little more stability on the ground surface. So the top yellow trail would be covered with stone dust, and leading to the top left corner where it says Hawes Brook. The bottom yellow coming mid left to bottom right is an existing driving path. That's the what translates to the fire road that leads back to the parking area. The application would make the parking area more ADA accessible, and basically turning the whole thing into more of a mobility friendly / ADA, as close to ADA compliant as possible. That little spur on the left-hand side, we would also build or create a more mobility-friendly path. There is a path there. It's a gravel path. So it's really not either wheelchair or stroller friendly right now, but we would basically cover that path again with stone dust. So we had put in an application to the Community Preservation Committee to fund this. The application was for $38,000. At the same time, Tony contacted me and said he had asked if we had any essentially shovel-ready projects from the Trails Committee that we could apply for the ride share grant money, which is money that's made available every time folks travel by way of Uber or Lyft in the town, within the town borders. So Article 2 was presented to use that ride share money, the roughly $19,000, to fund the purchase of materials that would essentially take care of this whole project. And town meeting, on a vote of, 98% in favor, town meeting did vote to utilize that alternate money for the funding of the materials. And the DPW has committed, and through Tony, has committed to basically through DPW labor and the DPW budget to fund the rest of the project. So at this point, thanks but no thanks. That by way of that town meeting vote, I'm not sure if the Trails Committee or the CPC wants to wait for any kind of official notice from Town Hall. But essentially that vote by town meeting eliminates the need and eliminates this application.
Okay.
So we're kind of 2 for 2, and we will probably back this project or remove this project from consideration. The third project, Pat, I'm gonna just unshare.
Yep.
But the third project, the University Ave Trail Study, it's still on the table, but through Pat DeShane's, Paul Halkiotis, and primarily Holly Jones, the conservation agent. Pat's nodding and giving Holly full credit. But Holly has applied for a state grant to fund that. We probably won't hear about that grant until, I would say, May at the earliest.
Well, Joe, if you remember, we applied for this last year, and I don't know if it was COVID related, which I mean, it very much well could be, but they told us we would know before the end of the fiscal year, and we didn't know until early August. So
Yeah.
I think, like you said, going forward with this project right now, in my opinion, it's a smart move just because it's up in the air whether or not you get the grant funding.
Right. If we do, I'm sorry, just one more thing to that point. If town meeting, this might be a good one if we don't know for sure. I would request the CPC go forward with this project, but I would definitely insert language to the effect of if funds are available elsewhere, then we would, obviously not require the CPC money. It's always better for somebody else to pay for it, so.
But we know before town meeting in May.
Probably, as Pat said, probably not, but we may have.
Was this awarded in August? Is that what it was?
No, so we applied for the same grant last year for the purposes of supplementing or replacing the funding for the St. Lot study, the St. Lot PAP project. That was something we applied for, same time frame, early February. We didn't hear back until like August. So it makes sense to just go forward with, I mean, obviously depending on how you vote on this project, but it makes sense to treat it as a regular CPA project until you hear from the state whether or not the grant's been accepted. But the grant itself also, it required matching funds. So although if Holly is successful in getting the town the grant, it still probably need a percentage of funding to come from matching town source. We have funding built within the community development department itself to cover that, but at the same time, if it were awarded a CPA project, it probably, it may not need all of that CPA funding. It may only need a percentage of that to count as those matching funds.
I mean, I hope everybody's aware that if any money is not spent from a project, it gets returned to the CPC anyway. So if we allocate the whole amount and only half of it's used, the other half comes back. So, so as far as that goes, so it isn't. So as far, Pat, interpretive signs, are we going to just put it on hold, or have you found anybody to take it over?
I have. So I've been in contact with Patty Fanning, pretty much throughout this. I mean, Patty, if anyone out here is obviously familiar with Patty, she's an amazing resource for town knowledge and just an abundance of information. So I had worked with her, but I had worked with her for initially on kind of just putting together what the sites could be and where they could be. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. Hold on one moment. And here we go. This is probably way too small for you to see. But we basically,
it's Washington Street mostly, right?
Yeah, it's Washington Street. So we're looking at the Washington Street corridor, basically from Old Parish to the Morse House, where you see the icon with kind of the yellow star. There's about 15 locations that Patty and I looked at in terms of utilizing for interpretive signage. And so this project is something that I was inspired from, obviously just thinking of different ideas, but John Hall is the one. I know, John, you have a friend down in Chatham who mentioned that they partook in this project for their 300th anniversary to incorporate interpretive signage down within Chatham. And this was a CPA funded project for the town of Chatham. So it's a really kind of hits the mark in terms of what I was thinking of. And so this is just, this is their website, and it gives them the detail for each plaque, for each placard, I guess you would say, both where they're located and what information is upon it. And just give you a little bit of idea, I zoomed into corner of Cross and Main Street in Chatham, and that is ideally something that I was kind of envisioning. I mean, it is kind of taken a little bit of a different spin. I know I had initially mentioned the idea of utilizing QR codes or something like that, with more of a simpler placard. Interpretive signage like this, you may be able to get something that I think would definitely catch the eye. Would definitely, if you're a pedestrian walking by, you resonate with being in a place and being in a place of importance. And so, something like this is, what I was kind of envisioning for the project. You would take these interpretive signs, put them in key locations, look up on the sign, and you have a blurb of what was there, as well as historic pictures of what's in front of you. And luckily, talking to Patty Fanning, particularly, she pretty much has all this. Not to say she has all the information, but she does. She's done a lot of research already. Obviously, has written numerous books on the town. And so these locations in particular, putting together this information and this layout is definitely feasible. With me leaving on Friday, it kind of puts a little hold in terms of where is the kind of the town person that can kind of pick up the reins. But I've been talking to one of the interns that's in Tony's office, a gentleman by name Chris Welch. And so I talked to him about maybe having a conversation with myself and Patty Fanning and seeing what we could do from the town side. And from there, unfortunately, it's kind of up in the air in terms of obviously how long Chris is here and if he can help to maybe facilitate or getting a price quote for what something like this could be, getting just the outreach in terms of getting the support for something like this. I know initially I had a conversation with Patty and Bernie Cooper on bringing this project to the 150th committee, as that would be something that I think would fall in line great with the goals of that group. Unfortunately, I haven't had a conversation with the 150th about this directly. I think Patty might have talked about it with them. But that's kind of where the project is right now. I think the spirit is there. I think the idea of where they would be located and how to do something like this, we have an example in Chatham to kind of look towards. It just kind of finding the right home for it to kind of pick up the reins of the project is just kind of where it is right now. So on my end, obviously, I'm kind of stepping back from it now directly, but I'm hopeful that it can be picked up. At least, find a new home somewhere to see it to fruition. So that's where I am with that.
Patty is the historical point person for the 150th committee. I don't know if she's formally on the committee, but I've been doing some history stuff and I've been dialoguing with her. And every time I contact Tom Maloney, the chair of the committee, he sends me back to Patty. So yeah. She's definitely the right person. My other thought was, I wonder if it would make sense to contact the folks in Chatham who've had that set of signs for a while and
I
ask
sent an email and I haven't heard back. I don't know if I sent it to their CPA person and I got nothing yet. So
well, I could try a back channel to my friend who still lives down there, and
that'd be
what
great.
I'm interested in is any information on costs and specs, but even more, they've had this for a while. Have they had some problems with vandalism or damage? Have they had any unexpected positives? Anything at all that they've learned that would be helpful to us coming in behind them?
I agree. I mean, I think you find vandalism is a it's unfortunately it's there for everything. It could be a possibility, but I mean their knowledge of what would the picking the sites, obviously installation, anything like that, it would be great. Probably a great group to talk to for whoever takes this project over, if it is the 150th committee. Not to put that on them to do or anything like that, but that at least there's someone that they could go to, or a group that they could go to, if this project is something that's that people want to take up.
Could I ask a question that sort of inspired by what you said, Pat? I want to be sure I'm clear about what the meeting right now is in terms of the flow of meetings and reviews and votes. Like, are we going to be voting on these projects tonight? Are we going to be voting on them after we've had the various proposers in to give us presentations, is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's our normal. I mean, obviously, the special town meeting this year, kind of, we haven't had a winter special town meeting virtually or anything like that before, so that threw off our normal rhythm of meetings. I believe in previous years, you would have an applicant in for an interview first to go over the project, and then would have the public hearing at a later date, for a legal standpoint to follow the town's regulation.
Has Ernie looked at the proposals, budgetary terms?
For which projects?
For all of them. I figure that.
So we have the Trails Committee projects, as well as, actually, no, sorry. The Fire Bell project is the one thing that was kind of up in the air. So obviously, everything kind of came down to the wire with the Carillon supplemental funding, because we were waiting on, for Ben Sunderland, who is he is the Bell guy for the Carillon. He's from Virginia. He's probably one of the only guys on the East Coast to do the job. And so that's something, if I forget, Joe, maybe if you could remember to talk to Lee Leach, because I think we had to wait on getting the Fire Bell estimate until Ben came up here physically. So they're doing work on the Carillon now, or they have been. So I know that was something that they were going to factor into, is if once they're doing the work on the bells right now, they could estimate a cost for removing the Fire Bell. And when we had a discussion, myself, Lee Leach, Kathy Carney, and Ben Sunderland, and it was kind of determined. I think Lee mentioned this last time too when he met with you all, was that because of the timing, the Fire Bell project can be done after the bell restoration. So hypothetically, bell repair gets done, framework gets done, and then the Fire Bell removal itself, if that's a project that the committee wants to go forward with, from a structural standpoint, Ben Sunderland could come back in the summer sometime, remove the bell, move the bells around, take out the Fire Bell, put everything back, and the instrument will still run fine. It'll still work fine. So it wasn't a timing issue that could really impact it. It was just, it was just the kind of the way it worked out. So I know I still need to get a quote on what that Fire Bell removal is. And obviously with that is not just the removal of the bell, it's also the cost that would be associated with a crane. Because the bell, it'd be 400 plus pounds. It's going to have to get taken out through the roof likely. So it is a little bit more to that project that still needs to be fleshed out in terms of a final cost. And in the historic sign.
Could I interrupt you, Pat?
Yeah.
Because I was really asking about something different. I was asking about the approvals process. Whenever we get what we think is a good set of cost estimates for the elements of a project, and the proposers have translated that into their best estimate of a budget, we still need to run it by Kathy Carney, and she will look at it and look at the things that most often concern her. We may come out with a different budget, and that needs to happen before we voted on the project as a committee. Same thing for Tony. I think we've agreed that he ought to have a chance to take a look at proposals, that it's not a matter of him saying, having veto power, but we'd like to hear what he has to say about each of our projects, and some of what he has to say may change what we do. So I'm
And
wondering,
I believe that Joe has brought those projects to the selectmen from the Trails Committee. Joe, is that something so that's already been done for those. The Fire Belt project hadn't, because we still were kind of figuring out the logistics of it. So that was something that I initially had brought forward to the selectmen. We decided to pull it, and it's been kind of hung up on, just a little. It's just been hung up from the town side in terms of getting the bell estimate itself, and then obviously, figuring out the logistics of the project before bringing it to the selectmen. The interpretive signage project, I initially brought that forward as something to talk about, but even if I was still here, it was something that the funding wasn't necessarily needed until the fall. There's still a lot more research that probably needed to go into it. So that's something that has not been brought forward to the selectmen yet as well.
I'd like to say something, then I'll get to Joe Greeley. As far as I understand this project, we'll go back to the fire bill. There's two parts. Ben Solomon would only prepare the bell to be moved. The other thing is, there'd have to be a vendor that could be able to do the lifting and move the bell from the tower to the ground again. So the problem with, I have a feeling this isn't going to make the cut this time, because we're not going to have sufficient information as far as moving the bell. I mean, preparing the bell to be moved is, Ben can give us an estimate on that, but the second part is the more important part, is how we're going to get it down to the ground. And that is, I have a feeling where I think that's kind of just idling right now. I don't know. We can
Isn't
touch
a
base.
third piece to that? Where's the bell get stored? Where's the bell going?
And that's the question, right? So that's why the project hasn't really been brought forward yet. Joe has something to say.
Well, I think, Joe Greeley.
Thank you. Pat, do you mind giving me a share again,
Yep. 1 moment.
please? I'll make this brief, but so Lee invited me up into the Carillon last week, and I'll make this brief, but I'll give you a quick update on both of these projects. So, as you can see, the bells, what's called the clappers in the bells have all been removed. So the game plan is that the bells themselves are stationary. They won't be moved. These frames, you can see these horizontal and vertical frames. That's what's going to be painted. The smaller bells, let me see if I can find a copy. All of the smaller bells, this is actually Lee was showing me the smaller bells. They're called the treble bells, but all of the smaller bells have been removed and they're being stored. Likewise, if you think of the bell and the innards, the clapper inside. So the clapper itself from all the bells have been removed and they're being stored. This is a picture of one of the clappers for the biggest bell. And that's probably it's probably a 6 foot long clapper. The ball at the bottom is what actually hits the bells. So that just a quick update, but that work is they're already rocking and rolling up in the tower. Ben Sunderland was here a couple of weeks ago. He did all of this preliminary work. He was here for about a week. So Ben removed all the bells and all the smaller bells and the clappers. So kind of what you see is what you're going to get. There are 3 vendors involved in the Carillon project. There's Ben Sunderland, the foundry. They're going to do all the rehab work for the components of the bell. The painting of the frames is vendor number 2. And then vendor number 3, there's a small amount of money that's being paid to a design company who's overseeing the design work. So that's progressing, and town meeting authorized the additional $200,000. So that's already kind of rocking and rolling there. This picture, I can't really enlarge it based on this screen share, or at least I don't know how to do it. But you can see I'm just kind of circling with the cursor here. But this is actually looking up the tower to the ceiling, essentially the ceiling of the tower. There's a little trap door in the roof, right? So this little square right here is part of the trap door, and that's actually in the middle of the roof. And that trap door gets removed, and that's the way that the fire bell is going to be lifted out from through the roof. You can see here the only bell that's got a clapper, and we were up 2 or 3 stories in the scaffolding in the frame. But you can see right here, this one bell is at the top level. That's actually the fire bell. And right now, Ben did not have time to look at the fire bell to evaluate its condition or to try to give an estimate on removing it from his side. And as a result, the clapper, you can see, this is actually Lee. He was moving the clapper back and forth, but the fire bell, basically what they have to do is they have to move a couple of the larger bells, make room to remove the fire bell and bring it up through the roof. So Ben Sunderland is coming back in March. He's going to do additional work in coordination with the paint job on the frame. But at that time, he's also going to give us a quote for the fire bell removal. And then in parallel, as Peter said, or maybe Pat, in parallel, they will get a quote from a rigger who's going to give us a quote to take the bell through the roof and basically lower it down onto a flatbed. To Catherine's point, which is obviously a good question of what happens next. Right now, the project proponents are trying to determine where the bell is stored, but maybe more importantly, what they're going to do with it post rehab. So the removal, I think my layman's terms, what's in front of us, what's in front of the CPC is phase 1, and phase 1 is the removal of the bell. Phase 2, which they're nowhere near trying to determine this, but phase 2 will be what's next, where it's stored, what is actually done with it, and what's the ultimate resting place for the bell. So that's kind of that's the word from above. So I will stop sharing. That's my summary of where we're at.
Catherine?
So great summary, thank you. And so we can't move forward with phase 1 unless we know where it's going, right? Or is the town going to store it somewhere?
If I
Where's
could,
the rigger going to? Where's the rigger going to bring it to?
if I could, Mr. Chair, it makes like 110% sense to take the bell out of the building while the other work is being done. Because if you're going to be there putting the scaffolding up and basically turning it essentially upside down, then that's the best time to do it. The timeline, the rough timeline, given the fact that all the pieces are now coming together, the timeline is a lot of the work on the Carillon will be done between, it's already basically started, but the Carillon should be done by June to early July. Lee is hoping that by 4th of July, that Carillon bells are ready to play. So I still think, and this is my own opinion, but I still think that if we can pull the pieces together for this phase 1, including where's it going to be stored, I think it would behoove all of us to try to get all of this done at the same time, which means that as far as I'm concerned, my recommendation to the committee is that we should still move forward with the fire bell proposal at the May 2021 annual town meeting, and just hope that all the pieces are together so that we can have a meaningful presentation, not only approve it ourselves and review it ourselves, but have a meaningful presentation to town meeting.
Patty?
Who's our contact person for the fire bell?
John Grove submitted
Oh,
the
yeah.
application.
I'm sorry, who?
John Grove.
Yeah, John Grove's the applicant, but I would probably reach out to I mean, Kathy Carney has been in Lee, have been kind of like the main people for Carol. Well, Kathy Carney, in terms of a municipal employee, is probably the best person to talk to about.
Thank you.
So, where do we go from here? As far as, I mean, I could see us having a meeting on, well, we'll have a meeting on March 10th. And I would think we'll have clarification on the Hawes Brook project, if that's basically done through town, another source. Hopefully some clarification on the platform at the landfill. And the only project that the Trails Committee would probably have that's definitely going to go forward right now is the University Ave Trail Study. So I have them invite them to March 10th to do their presentation. If they have any, all three projects at one time, but if there's nothing to talk about the other two, you just proceed with the University Ave design. Interpretive signs, I don't know. I think we might have to just keep that application like suspended. We won't take any action until end of March on that anyways, after the public hearing. Fire bell, that's going to be, if someone, that we can invite them to see if I invite them for March 10th, and they'll see if they can get something, get them engaged to find out, how the questions we have. We know how the bell can be prepared. We don't know how it's going to get out of the tower and where it's going to go after that. So, as far as that goes, so we have invitation. So we'll just do presentations on March 10th. As far as who we can get scheduled.
Okay.
It's kind of be a short thing. If we can't make March 10th, we're gonna have the public hearing on the 24th. So, or like I said, we could have more presentation on the 24th and then have a public hearing the 31st, but we can't really go past. I mean, I really don't want to go past March 24th because we got to get this to on the warrant and all that for town meeting, and that will close in early April. Catherine and then John.
So we talked earlier about a February 24th meeting, so we're not going to have anybody do a presentation then? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only saying that we could have likelihood we're going to have two presentations, so we could probably
Okay.
we could do
And then
both in March.
the other question is, and Joe, maybe you'll have to answer this. Based on what you just said, are we going to have pricing from a rigger and an estimate from the Foundry gentleman by March 10th? And if so, who's taking the lead? Is it Kathy Carney going to get the pricing for the rigger, or?
I think the quote from the rigger will definitely have that by March 10th. Since the Foundry, Ben Sunderland, will not, I don't think he'll be up here before March 10th. So I would say almost certainly March 24th, but I'll try to ring the bell, as it were, and try to get try to put that on their calendar to try to pull it all together.
That was bad, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks.
John, what you have?
Yes. First of all, I like the idea of postponing the interpretive signs, not so much because it's hard to get cost and other information by then, but I think that project needs a committed champion, not just somebody stepping into Pat's position, but someone who's genuinely excited about the project. You need to have that for success. And I think Patty might do that. Right now, we don't have anybody. I don't think it's getting somebody in the next few weeks. The second point is, I'm still concerned about making sure that Kathy, if they look at what we've done and talk to them about.
John, can I hold a sec? Can we're getting too much feedback. There's an echoing here. Everybody go mute for a second so John can finish his statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure that when we come to the annual meeting or get close to it, we're not going to be in a position where Kathy or Tony would be saying, well, I know you talked to me about this project, but I didn't give it the kind of attention it needs for my formal review. I didn't know that's what you were asking for. And so I'd like to make sure that now that we've honed it down to only a couple of projects that we're likely to go forward with, we make sure we really have gotten formal feedback from these folks so that we don't run into that kind of complaint down the road.
Okay. So anybody else have anything? And as far as we'll ask all the proponents for March 10th to make a presentation, and we'll see who can do it and who can't. And we'll allow each proponent 10, 15 minutes and see what happens as far as that goes. So that'll be basically what we'll be doing, presentations for March 10th. Besides that, is there anything else anybody needs to discuss? Oh, Pat, all right.
Well, I just want to give an update on the St. Lot project itself. So the bid went out there to find a landscape architect to help find the trail. We had 5 proposals. Joe, you're gonna have to help me out with this because I'm totally blanking on the name right now. But we end up going, I believe, Horsley Witten. I think Joe may have the actual information. So we decided on a landscape architect who we want to go forward with in terms of doing the preliminary trail design. So that's a project that's probably going to be going on throughout the spring or in early summer. It's exciting. Obviously, I hope to keep tabs from Holly and Paul on how the project progresses. But from where that, from potentially having cars on it to being bought in with CPA funds to being, a new element of Elliott Park and everything down there. It's pretty cool to see that project progressing. And so it's great that we're doing the preliminary trail design and possibly could be in a good position to see that project come back to the CPA as if for a second phase for actual implementation next fall. So it's making good progress there. And likewise, I know we have 2 outstanding projects that are mostly just waiting on the weather to get warmer. Is the pavilion over off Lower Pond. I know it's been ordered. Money's been encumbered, and we're kind of just waiting for the right time for them to deliver and then have facilities install that pavilion down there. So that's something to keep on the lookout for, probably in April or May. And I know Travis is working on completing work for the Lower Balch rehabilitation. There's a whole ADA element with ramps. I believe there was a ramp service that was kind of going from the Balch Elementary School down to the field. So that's a huge feat of engineering that's going to probably take place over the spring. I know he's done pretty good work down there already in terms of installing that fencing around the area where they want to do, I believe it's a futsal court, and the outdoor educational area has been completed for a while as well. And I believe there's also funding in there to rehab the basketball court that was down there as well. So good things hopefully coming in the spring, and so that's all I have in terms of an update.
Pat, one question on this, going back to the Saints. Do you know what the amount for the bid was that was awarded?
It was under 30 grand. I think it was like 29 something, 28 something. I'm not entirely
It was
sure.
38 available, wasn't it? Something like that. It was 30.
Yeah, we actually had a little bit more available. I think we initially appropriated funding. We factor in maybe more closing costs than we actually got. So there'll be a little bit of money coming back to the CPC from that. I would say about 20,000 probably will be coming back to the CPC or CPA, I should say.
Peter, the amount was 29,595.
There you go.
Right on, Pat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, what was the name of the architect again?
Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry.
got it right.
I did?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Horsley. Pat, you want to mention the letter you sent about the chapel?
Yes. So basically, I took the motion that was that the committee made at the January 13th meeting, and sent that in a memo over to the Board of Selectmen, and likewise to the PVCC through Tony Mizuko. So that process, I guess, is ongoing, and I haven't heard a response yet. Other than I believe I did talk to Christina from the Board of Selectmen. She just asked, what the memo was for, and so it remains to be seen what happens with closing out the chapel project. And obviously, with town meeting tomorrow, I know there's kind of an article involved with the PPCC, and so I guess it remains to be seen what's going to happen there.
Pat, should we get a copy of that letter over to Tom McQuaid? Because he might be the first one to see.
I think I see Molly Ahern in there too. Let me just double check. So, and if you're not familiar, Molly is the assistant town accountant.
Okay.
Yep.
No other business. And so tonight is Pat DeShane's last night. Oh, Patty, do you have something?
Are we having the February 24th meeting or no?
No.
Okay.
Unless somebody else wants it. No.
Okay. Sorry,
Just
go ahead.
do the invites for March 10th, because then give us at least some time to.
Okay. Go on and praise Pat. I can't wait to hear it.
All right. This, as we all know, it's Pat's last night. And so he's going, it's more of a shame he's going to Walpole. But, I know for like Joe Greeley, John Hall, myself, and Pat, we all started together on the CPC from first initial meeting and all that. So, sorry to see him go, but happy that he's found something, a nice opportunity ahead of him. So as far as all that goes, I talked to him quite a bit when he, a week ago. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I definitely want to acknowledge all his great work here, and helping us get through all the, we're all trying to figure out our way and finding our way through this. And he's been a great asset, and miss him, but I know where to find him.
Yeah.
So anybody else would like to chime in?
Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's, when Paul interviewed me, he asked, he's like, what do you know about the Community Preservation Act? I'm like, I have no idea, because all I did was GIS and I didn't know much about planning at the time. So it was a great learning experience to come in. learn on the fly with you. I think most of you knew about CPA more than I did when I started. So it was definitely more of a, a learn as I go type of experience. So, I'm very happy to have worked with all of you and to, we got some projects going. I mean, unfortunately, in the early stages, it takes a little while to see the fruits of our labor. But I think in May, with the pavilion set up and hopefully the lower bulge done and the St. Lot is getting there. As I mentioned earlier, that's kind of a cool thing to think about. I was there for those public hearings when we're talking about a parking lot going there, and oh man, what's going to happen, and be able to actually purchase that property with CPA funds and to see it now eventually become a park. That's just like, that's everything what the Community Preservation Act is about. So it's definitely hopefully some more good things to come for the CPA and for Norwood.
If I could, Mr. Chair, Pat, I personally appreciate all your help. You definitely helped us get this whole thing in place, and it helped us put structure to the CPA here in town. We do have as they say on TV land, we do have a parting gift for you. I did vow to Peter that I'll try to fill in the blanks and get everybody's signature in the next 24 hours on a card that we have.
No, thank you.
I am missing a few people. If you're in town hall on Friday, we'll drop it off. If not, we may either use it ourselves or somehow get it to you.
We'll do it in memorial.
Yeah, but thank you for all your help.
I'm down. Just head down Walpole Street and go. Yeah. And go knock on the door.
Yeah, but we do appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick, all you've done.
Good luck with everything.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, any other business, or do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second by John. Okay.
Okay, here we go.
All in favor, raise your right hand, only the right hand. Okay. All in favor, so no votes, all unanimous, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
miss you.
Good luck, Patrick.
Thank
Pat.
you.
We'll talk.
Bye.
Bye.